What's up guys, it's Mindset Performance Coach Adam McConnell here. In today's video, I'm super excited to share with you the first skill of becoming a poker athlete, which is self-awareness. Now, if you guys aren't familiar with the poker athlete concept, I recommend you checking out the video I did talking about this new approach to coaching and poker performance on becoming a poker athlete, which you guys can watch around here. And for those who missed that video, it's all about training your mind and body for elite poker performance. All right, so the poker athlete is someone who identifies key skills to improve and then trains those skills in order to become a better, higher performing poker player. Now, for these skills, there are 6 skills that focus on the mind, and there are 2 skills that focus on the body. All right, and over the next few weeks, I'm going to go through all 8 of these skills that you need to train and how to train them in order to become a poker athlete. All right, so today's skill is self-awareness, skill number 1. And what I'm going to do today is I'm going to coach you guys through the key 4 concepts to share. Then I'm going to break it down into a nice diagram and visual representation of these concepts so you guys can see how it works in real life. And then if you guys stick around to the end of this video, I'm going to share with you 5 key steps you guys can take right away in order to start building your self-awareness skill set. Sound fun? All right, let's dive on in. So 4 concepts around the skill of self-awareness. Now, self-awareness is all about knowing yourself. All right, it's knowing the conditioning that you've had, or the programming as I call it, and being aware that we need to change/upgrade our current programming. All right, so the first concept you guys need to be aware of is programming. And we have all been programmed by our conditioning, right, by our past experiences. So in simple terms, you could say we're the sum of our learned experiences, your environment you've been in, the friends you're around, the schools you went to, the influences of your peer groups, all shaped a lot of your programming. And as a result, we live our lives from that programming. So we think we're good at certain things, we think we're bad at certain things, we think we can achieve success in certain areas, but not in other areas. And all this is happening subconsciously, all right? And the scary thing is, if you're not aware of your programming, you live trapped in the program. It's like being caught up in the Truman Show and not knowing you're in it. All right, but as soon as you're aware of your programming, you can start to see it objectively from the outside. You're like, this is just my programming. This is me acting from my programming, and I can change it. All right, I'm going to go into how to do that as we go through. All right, so first concept, understanding that you've been programmed through your past experiences. That programming then leads to concept 2, which is your beliefs. All right, now your beliefs are the thoughts and the stories you tell yourself about yourself. All right, it's what you tell yourself you're good at, what you're not good at. It's all the programming that we've experienced. We then turn into a narrative, all right? It's thoughts that we repeat to ourselves and we believe to be true become this whole bundle of belief systems. Now, the scary thing is our programming beliefs end up shaping the majority of our lives if we don't do anything about it, all right? So you go to a certain school, you have a certain friend group, you get told certain things from your family, you get told certain things from society. You create this limited box of this is the world that I live in. And everyone tells me this is what it is, so I believe it. And you start telling yourself this is true. As a result, you start creating boundaries for yourself at the top ends and also at the bottom end. All right? So to bring this to life, I want you guys to think about your poker career. And I want to think about a concept called the floor and the ceiling. All right? So here's a diagram where basically we've got the bottom line, which is the floor, which I just write in. And then this top one is the ceiling. All right? Now, the floor is the minimum standards you accept for yourself, all right? So in terms of your bankroll, for some of you guys, that might be 5K. For some of you guys, that might be 10K. For some of you guys, that might be 100K. But this is the standard. When you hit this, when you hit the floor, you bounce up, all right? So I think of the floor as it initiates your survival mechanisms. It gets you grinding, studying, playing hard, doing anything, chasing or producing a lot of effort in order to get yourself out of that situation. If you don't create a floor, guess who creates a floor for you? Society. They will say you need to pay the bills, you need to eat food, you need to cover your basic living costs, and that becomes the very minimum floor. All right, so we all have a floor which initiates our kind of survival mode, all right, and we hustle and grind from that. And a lot of people use the floor as their fuel source, and when that runs out, they struggle, all right? So have a think about it for yourself, like what's your floor, which initiates like so much drive and energy, and then the next thing we have is the ceiling. And the ceiling is the top standard that you set for yourself. And when you hit that, you start to ease off. All right, you very quickly start to get comfortable in your environment, and you start to ease off the effort. All right, so for some people that could be having a 100K role. For others, it's like making 10K months. And when you hit that, subconsciously, it's not a conscious process, you notice, I'm lacking a bit of motivation. My drive eases off a bit. I'm lacking that go after it life, go get a personality that I used to have. And I have conversations on this topic probably every other week with players who are super motivated, and then they get a lot of success or some success, and they're like, I've lost my drive, I've lost my motivation. Why is that? It's because they've hit a ceiling, all right? They've hit a subconscious ceiling, which is based on their programming and their beliefs. So what happens is, a very scary thing, it looks like your life in many areas, you've got different floors and ceilings for different areas, but your life plays out like this, all right? We oscillate between the floor and the ceiling. When we hit the floor, we initiate energy and movement, and when we hit the ceiling, we ease off. All right, we end up oscillating between our floor and our ceiling. All right, so remember again, the floor is your kind of minimum standard that you set for yourself. We could call this your fears as well. When you hit your fear, like, I need to put food on the table, or I need to get going because I don't accept this. Fear is part of the floor. And then we have the ceiling, which is all about your self-worth for yourself, what you think you're worth, and also your desires, how far your desires stretch. All right, so if you feel like you've achieved a lot, you get comfortable. Now, we live in between them, and this is your comfort zone. Your comfort zone's in between your floor and your ceiling. All right, and we oscillate between this. So you think about your life, either your financial life or your poker career. Think about this happening for yourself. Hitting the floor, get really motivated, and then hit the ceiling and easing off. All right, so all of this comes from your programming and your beliefs. All right, so we're going to come back to this model in a second and how to break past it, but you've got to become aware of this in the self-awareness stage. All right, the next thing we need to become aware of, the next concept I want to share with you guys is values. And the values is all about, what do you want for your life? What are the things that have highest value to you right now? Not what your family expects of you, not what society expects of you, not what your peer group expects of you, and you've got to start thinking, what do you want? What's going to make you happy and fulfilled going forward? Now, if you don't spend time on this, what you'll generally find is having some success is what society wants, getting a house, getting married, having some children, settling down. These are the values that society has, all right? This sets in you. And very often we get conditioned through our programming beliefs. We take on society's values or our friends' values. We don't stop and go, what do I want? And your values change over time. So you've got to check in with yourself at least like yearly to redefine your values. All right, so you've got to decide, what are your highest values right now? For some of you guys, that will be growth. Growth meaning improvement, self-development, getting better. For some of you guys, it will be achievement. Your number one value right now is achieve at all costs. For some of you guys, that will be your health or your relationships or your family. All right, and you've got to know what your values are in order. All right. And the reason it's got to be in order is because your values will go head to head very often, all right? So for example, say my highest value is growth, but I also have a really strong value of relationships or friendships. Then my friends are going on a night out and partying, and I've got the option to join them, or I've got the option to work on my growth and improving. If I'm not clear what my highest values are, I'm in conflict. I'm like, I want to do this, and I also want to do that, and I end up, whatever I choose, I end up losing, because I'm like, I should have done that. When you've got clear values, you can make these decisions very easily and stick in alignment, all right? So you can go, okay, growth is ahead of friendships right now, so I'm gonna choose growth anytime I'm up against it. And then from those values, once you've got clear on your values, we can start moving to the fourth concept, which is creating a new identity, all right? Now, if you're working on personal development, if you're working on improving yourself, and you're not working at the identity level, you need an upgrade. You need an upgrade, all right? Because the identity is the holy grail of change, all right? So your identity is basically your beliefs all bundled together into a story narrative of who you think you are and what you think you're capable of. Now, the scary thing is, almost anything we create in our identity can become our reality, but we very rarely exceed our identity. If ever, we almost never exceed our identity. What does that mean? It means if you think you're a failure and you suck at stuff, guess what? Life's going to give you that back. You're going to suck at it. If you think you're amazing at stuff and you can do really well, guess what? You've got a really good chance of actually achieving that. So when we understand like our life is governed by the beliefs we tell ourselves, and on the highest level, our identity, we need to start going, oh shit, what identity do I want to have? What identity do I want to start having going forward? All right? So once you've got your values clear, you can then start creating a new identity in alignment with your future aspirations. what identity do you want going forward into the future? Now, this is the opposite of what most people do, because most people think their identity is shaped from their past experiences, which is this up and down floor and ceiling. As a result, they're trapped in an old model of like what I've done in the past equals me now. Whereas people who understand this concept go, wait a second, if it's only all thoughts in how I think about myself, why don't I create a new identity to aspire to? Why don't I create a 2.0 version of me, which is capable of living life on a much higher level? And guess what happens when you do that? Something magical happens when you create a new identity and start living from that framework. You create a new ceiling, all right, up here. And now you start playing life, a new game of life, and you start playing towards a new ceiling. All right? And now you're upgrading your life circumstances, and you've smashed through your old ceiling. All right? And what you're doing now is you're still playing between a floor and a ceiling, but you've increased the ceiling. All right? You've chosen your identity, which raises the ceiling. And when you're aware of this, you can do this over and over and over. And the goal is to increase your floor, so that's the standard you set yourself, ideally towards your old ceiling, and then smash the old ceiling down and create a new ceiling. And what happens is once you play this game enough times and you start getting good at it, you start setting the ceiling bigger and bigger. All right? When you first start setting new identities, you're like, I'll just move my identity up a little bit, not too much, just a little bit of improvement. But once you realize you can step into a new identity and create it for yourself, like almost like magic, you start going, well, why don't I just create an awesome identity up here? Why don't I just create an identity way, way up here and start living from that framework? And guess what? You can. You can create a new identity in alignment with your future goals. All right? So to package it all together, we've got programming and beliefs create the floor and the ceiling. And most people, unfortunately, live their whole lives bouncing between a floor and a ceiling that was pre-decided for them by society and by their conditioning. People who are aware of this use self-awareness to identify their beliefs and their programming. They then get very clear on what are my current values right now, what do I want to be, what do I want to hold my life standard around, which 4 or 5 values are highest to me right now, and then they create a new identity in alignment with those values, and they consciously move that ceiling up. They consciously make the effort to blast past the old ceiling and create a new one. And the more they can reinforce that narrative, the stronger and stronger it becomes until their life circumstances start blasting past their old ceiling. All right, this is an amazing process that all of you guys can do if you actually go through the actual process. So I'm now going to share with you guys the 5 steps you need to take after watching this video to actually start taking steps towards this process. All right, so 5 steps to take. So the first step you need to do is identify your old programming. All right, so we've all been programmed different. We all have a different makeup and we've had different experiences and we have different limitations. So you've got to get clear on what is your old programming, all right? And just look for how your life is currently playing out and ask yourself, what would I have to believe from these life circumstances to happen, all right? So for example, say you've only got 10K bankroll. What would I have to believe for myself to only have a 10K bankroll? You might go, I'd have to believe that money's hard to come by, that it's difficult to move up stakes and make money. I'd have to believe that I'm not good enough or I haven't got the self-worth to get higher. Have a look at the narratives and the old programming and also go back to your past experiences, what things were conditioned for you. All right, so for me, I was told money's really hard to come by. You've got to be really smart to make money and get ahead. Don't do things that you're not good at because you'll get beat. I used to get told all these like constructs around just stay in your lane. I used to get told security, to have a secure job, always find a job in the government or in the council because they've got secure pensions. All conditioning, old programming. And if I believed that, I'd have lived out my life from that framework. All right, so identify your old programming is step 1. It's all going to be for you. Step 2, reprogram your beliefs. All right, start to look at the stories that you tell yourself. All right, what do you currently believe in? Like I said before, with your old programming, what would you have to believe for this old programming to become true? All right, and start thinking some new beliefs. What new beliefs would I like to have? What would I like to believe? All right, so start thinking about almost like creative. What would I like to believe? All right, what could I start to try on as a new belief system? And once you realize beliefs are not set in stone, they're very malleable, and you can choose your beliefs. All right, people don't believe this one, but you can actually choose to believe different things. You can actually choose new thoughts in your head and to start enforcing them over and over and believe new things. All right, so number 2, reprogram your beliefs. Number 3, get clear on your values and your vision. All right, so once we know our beliefs and our programming, we've then got to start creating a new narrative and go, wait a second, what do I value right now? And you've got to get really clear. If I ask you guys, what are your top 3 to 5 values? Most people don't know that off the top of their head because they haven't spent time to think about who they are and what they want. So get clear on the vision you want to create and the things that you value most right now. All right, spend some time mapping that out. Then you want to create an upgraded identity in alignment with these values in this vision. All right, a new identity. What would your new identity look like? What would the 2.0 version of you look like? If you were to achieve all your goals, which version of you needs to show up? And let me tell you, there's a version of you that can achieve everything you want, all right? As long as you're not trying to break the laws of gravity and do anything crazy, there's a version of you that can achieve the goals that you want, all right? So start creating it. Create that new identity for yourself. And then reinforce that new identity daily. Every day, start imagining life from the role of that identity, all right? So I am this version of myself now. How would that new version of me act? What would I do? What time would I wake up? How would I show up my days? How would I think? How would I speak? What would my habits look like? And start reinforcing that new identity every single day. And every time you do act from that framework, give yourself a pat on the back and acknowledge that you're stepping into a new identity. You're stepping into a new version of yourself, and you're literally breaking past your old programming. You're breaking past your old conditioning. If I bring it back down, you can start to create a new ceiling. All right, you can break past your old ceiling, your old conditioning, and rather than living between your old floor and ceiling, you can move that ceiling up, and you can start living from a higher framework. All right, and you can actually start achieving things that you've never achieved before. All those times you got stuck and limited and going, this is as far as I can go in life. Realizing I just hit a ceiling and break past that ceiling, you can just keep moving forward. All right, so 5 steps. We're identifying your old programming, reprogram your beliefs, get clear on your values and your vision, create an upgraded identity, and reinforce your new identity daily. All right, if you can start doing those things, you start building amazing self-awareness, and all of a sudden, you start to feel in control of your life. Rather than living in this kind of old conditioned program, which is like kind of bouncing between a very limited framework, you can start to create the rules. How far do you want to go? It's as far as your identity, as far as the identity you create. How far, what do you want to achieve? You decide, and you start getting really excited about life and realizing, everything I want, I can create for myself if I start by first deciding the identity and then living from that framework. All right, guys, hopefully you've enjoyed this video. Now, if you are excited about learning more about how to become a poker athlete, if you click on the link below in the description, it'll take you to a page telling you all about the poker athlete and how to train yourself to become a poker athlete. It's a new concept which I'm really, really excited to bring to life into programs for you guys and teach you guys how to go from a beginner at each skill set all the way to an elite level. All right, and it's going to be training these skill sets over and over with daily practices, daily application in order to become an elite poker athlete. Now, if you did like this video, make sure you smash the thumbs up. There's going to be 7 more videos. So this is skill number 1 on the other page. I'm going to be doing 7 more videos teaching you how to train each skill set. So do look out for those. And until then, keep liking the videos. Drop a comment below if you got some value from this, and I'll see you guys in the next video.